Hi, another Christmas video for you this time. We're going to be making some lovely personalised stockings that have cuffs and are fully lined. And this one is fat quarter friendly as long as you stick to 150% for the pattern size. For a list of the required fabrics and tools, have a read of the description. Go ahead and download the template I've linked to. You'll need to print it at 150%. In order to do this, you'll need to use a specific PDF reader, which I've also linked to. Now, some people seem to struggle with this, so I'll add a link with a walkthrough of how to do it. Cut out the pieces and take them together. Fold your fat quarter in half with right sides together. Lay your pattern on top of it and pin. As you can see, I did the lining fabric at the same time. This also needs to be right side to right side. Obviously, if you prefer, you can do these separately. Place the pattern off to one side so that you can use a section of the remaining lining for the hanging loop. Carefully cut around the template. Repeat this for the lining fabric if you didn't do both together. From that lining fabric, cut out a piece measuring 2.5 by 7 inches. My ruler here is 2.5 inches wide, so I marked at 7 inch top and bottom and then drew around it. Cut that out. And now we can prepare the loop. Fold the fabric in half with wrong sides together and press. Open that up and fold either side inwards so it touches the pressed line. Press those. Fold the entire thing back up and press again. Now sew down that open side close to the edge to close it up. You don't need to sew down the other side, but I prefer it as it looks neater. Once sewn, you can set this aside. First thing we need to do is personalise the lining. Now, because of the way that this is constructed, the name will need to be added upside down. Take your lining piece and place it on a flat surface, right side up, so that you can see how this will form. We want the name to run across the top of the stocking. Measure from the straight edge up 3 inches. Measure from the straight edge again up 1 inch. Measure from that mark down half an inch. Now measure each side inwards 1 inch. That rectangle is where you want to confine the name. I wrote out the name a few times until I was happy with the design, but feel free to use a computer to print it out in whatever font you like. I would suggest keeping it simple if you've not used a open toe quilting foot before. If the lining fabric is light enough, you should be able to see the writing through it. Mark the name on the stocking. And now to sew it. Put your open toe quilting foot on your machine and choose a thread that will stand out. Place a piece of stabiliser, or as I'm using, wadding, on the back where the name will be stitched. Pin it in place. Set your machine stitch length as low as it will go and lower the feed dogs on your machine. Starting from the beginning, follow the pen lines carefully. Once you've stitched over it once, go ahead and use your iron to remove the marker lines. Then sew over the name a few more times until you're happy. I went over this 3 times, then went back and carefully filled in any gaps that I'd created. You can go ahead and trim off the excess wadding now. Take your 2 outer pieces of fabric and place them right sides together. Pin them. Sew around the entire stocking, leaving just the top open. Remember to backstitch at the start and end, so that when we come to turning out the right way, the stitches won't pull. Repeat this with the lining pieces. Before sewing these together, take your hanging loop and fold it in half. Open up the top edge of the lining on the heel side of the stocking and measure down 3 inches. Place the loop at the top of that mark, pointing inwards and downwards. Leave it hanging over the outer edge so that you know the machine will definitely stitch through it. Now go ahead and sew around the lining, remembering to backstitch at the start and end, remembering to leave your turning gap, and also sewing over the loop area a few times to reinforce it. Trim off the excess from the hanging loop. You need to clip the curves to reduce bulk. I do actually prefer to use pinking shears here, but clipping through the curves will work fine. Here's where things can get a bit confusing. Turn the outer pieces right side out. With the lining still inside out, slide the outer piece inside. Line up the front and back seams and pin or clip them together. Sew around this using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Gently pull out the outer piece through the turning gap we left in the lining. Then pull the lining out so it's right way out and you can see the turning gap. Smooth out that lining as best you can and stitch the gap closed. It really doesn't matter how this looks as it won't be seen. Tug on either side of the opening so that the fabric turns in and then top stitch across it. Push your lining fabric inside the stocking and use your hand to push it into place inside. This can be a bit fiddly, but bear with it. Fold over the cuff and there you go. These were made specifically to use fat quarters, but if you want a larger stocking, print the template out larger and use larger pieces of fabric. Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, please consider liking this video and subscribing to see more videos as we release them.